Hello dear students, this is lecture Wasim. Today we are in mechanical workshop for the course MENG 210 Manufacturing Process 1. Today we are going to conduct experiment number 3, a weld using submerged arc welding process. So we are going to perform a welding using a submerged arc welding process. So in the introduction of the submerged arc welding process, so basically this is the type of arc welding. This is a type of arc welding. From the name it is very clear the weld pool is submerged by a powder granular flux. Here in this machine, in this process, the weld pool is completely covered with a granular powdered flux. So that's the reason you cannot see a radiations. So that's the reason here you cannot see the arc in this welding process. So the flux is a chemical component used to protect the welding from oxidations. Due to the flux, we are going to protect our weld pool from the oxidations. So here in this process, the electrode is consumable. So this is the electrode consumable process. In this process, due to the presence of this flux, there is a creation of slag. So this process is not a slag-free process. Due to a solid flux, we are going to get a slag on the weld. So this process is commonly used to weld carbon steel, stainless steel, nickel, copper and many other metals. So coming to the learning outcomes of this experiment, upon the completion of this experiment, the student should be able to recognize and follow all the safety rules and the protections with the submerged arc welding process, and also they able to recognize the equipments which are going to be used in submerged arc welding process, and also the student will recognize the setup of equipment of the submerged arc welding, and they will perform a submerged arc welding of various joints in flat positions. And in the last learning outcomes, we are going to inspect our welded joints. So coming to the first learning outcomes, so which is the safety precautions. So before performing the welding, the student have to follow all the safety rules, like always wear dry protective clothing and the proper dark lenses. Always keep a safe and a clean work area. Always make sure there is enough ventilations while performing a welding. Make sure that the joints of the welding machine are properly insulated and the cables are properly insulated and all electrical connections are properly tightened. Keep all welding equipments in good conditions. Keep welding cables dry and free from oil and the grease. Always have a welding machine properly grounded. You have to properly ground the welding machine. Never weld a vessel which has contained any explosive or flammable materials. And after completion of the welding, switch off the main power supply and also stop the cutting. And after the completion of the welding process, you have to switch off the power supply of the machines. So this was the learning outcome of our weld using a submerged arc welding process. So in the second learning outcome, we have the equipments of submerged arc welding. There are the following equipments which are used in the submerged arc welding machine. They are a welding source or a welding machine. Number 2, a wire feeder from where we are going to feed our electrode or a wire. And number 3, a flux hooper, from where the powder flux is going to be fed. And number 3, electrode wire. And number 4, we have the electrode wire. And number 5, we have the flux powder. So these are all the equipments of submerged arc welding. And in the next learning outcome of this welding process, we have tools and equipments which are going to be used to perform the welding. We have to use our submerged arc welding stations and the 2 pieces of mild steels of respective size and the respective thickness, and the mild steel filler wire, flux powder, and we have to use the wire brush and the cutting pliers or the tongs and the safety clothing and the safety equipments. So these are all the tools and equipments which are going to be used while performing this type of welding. Now coming to the next step, where we have to conduct or where we have to carry out our submerged arc welding. So the first step, you have to clean the workpieces or the surface of the workpiece by means of a wire brush, and you have to mark the workpieces with respect to marking tool at the required dimensions, where we have to perform our submerged arc welding. Then position the workpiece properly on the working table to perform a welding in the flat position. Now choose the dip transfer method for this type of welding, and we have to set up the following welding requirements, like a proper volts, and you have to set up the proper current of the machine, and you have to set up a proper wire feed speed. Then you have to adjust your electrode. There must be a proper electrode and workpiece distance, and then we have to perform welding. So in this way we are going to carry out a welding by using a submerged arc welding. Now we will go to conduct the demonstrations of a straight weld by using a submerged arc welding. This can be done with the help of our instructor. So after the demonstrations of your weld using a submerged arc welding, we have to inspect our weld. Here we have performed a straight weld, so our inspections will be with respect to the straight weld. So each weld bit should be straight with even spaced ripples and the continuous reinforcement. So your weld bead must have a straight, evenly spaced ripples. The crater of the weld should be filled, and in the last of the inspections there should not be any spatter or there should not be any surface defects on your welded workpiece. So this completes our experiment number 3, which was a weld using a submerged arc welding process. So in the submission of the lab report, by the end of this exercise, each group of the students must submit the lab report within 2 weeks of the conduction of this experiment. The report should include the following points. We have some 9 points in the submission of report. The student have to follow all these 9 points, and they have to prepare the reports, and they have to submit the reports within the specified times. So this complete our experiment by using a submerged arc welding. Thank you. Okay, now coming for the equipments of submerged arc welding. So this is the complete set of submerged arc welding machine. Now this is the arc welding machine or a submerged arc welding machine or a power source where we are going to set current and voltage. Now coming to the second equipment of submerged arc welding, we have a wire feeder from where we are going to feed our electrode. So this is the third equipment of submerged arc welding. There is a flux hooper. From here we are going to feed our flux to the welding process. Now coming for the next equipment of submerged arc welding, we have a electrode wire. This is the electrode wire which we are going to use for welding of the metals. So coming to the last equipment of submerged arc welding process. So this is our powdered flux. So this is the powdered flux. So this powder flux will be completely cover our weld pool. So that's the reason in this process we cannot see arc. So that's the reason it is called as a submerged arc welding. So this completes a complete setup of our submerged arc welding. Thank you.